Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, devotees, please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. It's from Canto 2, Chapter 1, and Text 25. Canto 2, the Cosmic Manifestation. chapter 1, the first step in God realization in text 25. So without further ado, I'll start the class. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadari Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadadhari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Privajikacharya Stotra Sadashishimad's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shira Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Privajikacharya Stotra Sadashishimad's Divine Grace Shira Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai ISKCON founder Acharya Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवाचार्य गौर भक्तवृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय वृंदावन धाम की जय मथुरा धाम की जय नवद्वीप धाम की जय जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय जगन्नाथ स्वामी की जय गंगा माई की जय जमुना माई की जय तुलसी देवी की जय भक्ति देवी की जय हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय सामवेद भक्त वृंद की जय निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि को all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to the assembled devotees Hare Krishna all glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga Krishna Prabhupada Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Swami Namaste
मेरा जो है पुरुष जो सब भगवान था
Narayana Namaste Chanarum Chevam Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Nastya Praisva Bhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatu Tamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Hare Krishna. So Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 1, Text 25. Anda Koshe Shariresmin Sapta Varana Samyute Vairaja Purusho Yosau Bhagavan Dharanashraya Andakoshe Sharirismin Saptavara Samyute Vaja Purusho Yusau Bhagavan Dharanashraya Andakoshe Sharirismin Saptavara Samyute Vairaja Purusho Yosau Bhagavan Dharanashraya. Hare Krishna. Anyone who wants to chant, they can chant now. Unmute yourself and chant.
अंडकोशे शरीरस्मिन् सप्तावरण संयुक्त वैराज पुरुषो येसौ भगवान् धराणशरय. हरे कृष्णा.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? Anyone else? Somebody's already unmuted.
अंधकोशे शरीरेऽस्मिन् सप्तवर्ण संयुते वैराज पुरुषो योऽसौ भगवान् धारणाश्रय. हरे कृष्णा.
Hare Krishna. Okay. Anyone else? All right, we'll do word for word now. Andakoshe, within the universal shell. Sharire, in the body of. Asmin, this. Sapta, sevenfold. Avarana, covering. Samyute, having so done. Vairaja, the gigantic universal. Purusha, the form of the Lord. Ya, that. Also, he. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Dharana, the conception. Ashraya, object of. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The gigantic universal form of the personality of Godhead within the body of the universal shell, which is covered by sevenfold material elements, is a subject for the Virat conception. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Simultaneously, the Lord has multifarious other forms, and all of them are identical with the original fountainhead form of the Lord, Sri Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, it has been proven that the original transcendental and eternal form of the Lord is Sri Krishna, the absolute personality of Godhead. But by his inconceivable internal potency, Atma Maya, he can expand himself by multifarious forms and incarnations simultaneously without being diminished in his full potency. He is complete, and although innumerable forms and incarnations, although he can expand himself by multifarious forms and incarnations simultaneously without being diminished in his full potency. He is complete, and although innumerable incomplete forms, he is complete, and although innumerable complete forms emanate from him, he is still complete without any loss. I'll read it again. He is complete, and although innumerable complete forms emanate from him, he is still complete without any loss. That is his spiritual or internal potency. In the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, manifested his Virat Rupa just to convince the less intelligent class of men who cannot conceive of the Lord as appearing just like a human being, that he factually has the potency of his claim to be the supreme absolute person without any rival or superior. Materialistic men can think, although very imperfectly, of the huge universal space comprehending an innumerable number of planets as big as the sun. They can see only the circular sky overhead without any information about this universe, as well as many other hundreds of thousands of universes, are each covered by sevenfold material coverings of water, fire, air, sky, ego, nomenon, and material nature, just like a huge football pumped and covered, floating on the water of the causal ocean, wherein the Lord is lying as Mahavishnu. All the universes in seed are emanating from the breathing of the Mahavishnu, who is but part of the partial expansion of the Lord. And all the universes presided over by the Brahmas vanish when Mahavishnu withdraws his great breath. In this way, the material worlds are being created and vanished by the supreme will of the Lord. The poor, foolish materialist can just imagine how ignorantly he puts forward an insignificant creature to become his rival incarnation, simply on the allegations of a dying man. The Virat Rupa was particularly exhibited by the Lord to give lessons to such foolish men, so that one can accept a person as the incarnation of Godhead only if such person is able to exhibit such a Virat Rupa as Lord Krishna did. The materialistic person may concentrate his mind on the Virat or gigantic form of the Lord in his own interest and as recommended by Shukadeva Goswami. But he must be on guard not to be misled by pretenders who claim to be the identical person as Lord Krishna, but are not able to act like him or exhibit the Virat Rupa, comprehending the whole of the universe. Oma Ginati Mirandasya, Gyana Gina Shalakaya, Chakshu Umilitam Dina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirveshesha Sunivari Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Okay. So the English translation again. The gigantic universal form of the personality of Godhead within the body of the universal shell, which is covered by sevenfold material elements, is the subject for the Virat conception. So, Shukadeva Goswami is describing what happens in the case of those who are non-devotees, who Krishna can help through his mercy by bringing them close to him eventually, but originally or at the beginning, those people taking or having some appreciation for this universal form of the Lord. We're talking about materialists, non-devotees. So for materialists, their mindset is in all things material. Therefore, for them to come to the spiritual and connect with Sri Krishna in a personal form, with even the opportunity to relate to him, that is something that won't be believed right away. Or it may be difficult for them to conceive of it and even think that they can be involved in that kind of relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So for them, since they're in the material world and they see material nature around them, to bring them to the personality of Godhead, it's great to fascinate them. For them, it will be great to be fascinated. And therefore, the universal form is then made available like that to them. But towards the end of the purport also, Sri Prabhupada makes a point that there are some people who will be cheating and pretending that they're the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but they can't be because the Lord will that our Lord is able at any time in his will to manifest this universal form, whereas those who are cheaters really cannot do it. And that is the distinction that we can, in fact, arrive at between those who are fake and then the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. So in the purpose, the Prabhupada says that the Lord simultaneously has so many other forms, expansions. Some of them are directly looking like the original personality of Godhead, and some of them are not. And all of that has to do with how he wants to relate to his devotees. So the Lord is very personal in that sense. And so many people are, when the Lord is personal like that, then people are able to relate to him in a way where they are comfortable with. And this is the whole point. All the way down to even the religions now, that of course they're not at the level of Krishna consciousness, but even that there's variety. So that if a person wants a particular religion or relate to the Lord in a certain way with certain beliefs, they can do that. So the Lord is always, and this is all, it all has to do with love. The Lord is just out of love of the living entities, the part and parcel of him, how where their mindset is at. And so we're talking now about those who have mindset of non-devotional life, but they know, they see the world, they see the sun, and Prabhupada is just taking the trouble to bring about all of this. Now, the materialistic men, they think of the huge universal space, as Srila Prabhupada like this describes it. And we look up, we all have experience of it. We look up in the sky. When the clouds are not in the sky, we see the moon at night, that is. And we see the stars also. So there's a number of bodies like that, and everybody has experience of it. So this is what they can relate to. So they see the circular sky, they see the circular moon, different types. But then Srila Prabhupada goes into a little bit more detail to reveal that the universe, this one that we're in, as well as all the others, hundreds of thousands of them, they are covered by material coverings, each being 10 times bigger in width than the previous. Water, here he mentions water, sky, fire, air, ego. He does in fact mention other places. There's also earth, even at the covering there is. Nominal, which is outside of this covering, representing the spiritual. And then, of course, the entire material nature. So Srila Prabhupada describes it and gives it a shape like a huge football, which is pumped. And then there's this covering on it. And the whole thing is floating in the water of the causal ocean. And where the Lord is lying is Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu is an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. In fact, he's an expansion of the expansion. And the way Krishna has put it together is first his own expansion. First expansion is Balaram. Balaram. And Balaram expands to the Chakru view, had the four forms, Vasudev, Aniruddha, Sankarshan, and Pradyumna. And that Sankarshan expands to Narayan, the head of each spiritual planet. And that Narayan also expands into a second set of Vasudev, Aniruddha, Sankarshan, and Pradyumna. And the Sankarshan of the second set expands to Mahavishnu, the one we're talking about now in this purport. And he is the one who, after he breathes out, as he's breathing out, I should say, these universes are coming like seeds from his pores. So it's kind of difficult to even imagine how big Mahavishnu is beyond our conception. And that's the way nature is, because we can also imagine if somebody was an ant, an ant body, a 6 foot person or even a 5 foot person would be looked at as huge. So in that same way, and demigods are much, much bigger than us. Just like we can step on an ant and kill an ant, not intentionally, but even just walking, that can happen. That the demigods can also, we can play that role, or we can be in that position of an ant. They are that big and they're that powerful. They can also crush us. But of course, they're in the mode of goodness, so they do not ever do that. But that is actually what the material creation is. All the sizes are relative. And even time is relative. It's all explained in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this was being spoken by Maitreya Muni to Vidura. So the relativity in time. But this case, for the sake of those who are non-believers, in terms of non-devoted, not devoted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mahavishnu is there and is an expansion of the Lord. And when Mahavishnu beats out, these come and these universes come, and through the expansion to Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, the Lord Brahmas for each, there's one Lord Brahma for each universe. So there are many, many, many Brahmas as there are universes. And when the Lord Mahavishnu breathes in, then the material worlds are being dissolved. We go back into the pores of the Lord. So in this way, the material worlds are created, and then they're annihilated, and then they're recreated, and then they're annihilated, like that. So many, many people who are materialists cannot go past this particular type of form. So the Lord has given this Virat Rupa, which is everything inside material. I mean, in the Virat Rupa is material, everything. It is not for the devotee who is looking to grow spiritually. So the Virat Rupa is there for a number of reasons. One, to give lessons to those who are foolish. So people can begin to accept the Lord as an incarnation, and they look at it that way. Even though it's just the Virat Rupa and it's just planets and it's just, on all of them are the material, nothing spiritual about that. So the materialistic person, as Sukadeva Goswami is saying, they can concentrate their mind on the Virat Rupa. And this is also described. The Lord manifested it in the Battle of Kurukshetra. It's in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And Arjuna saw it, and his mind was blown. He was very, 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 very surprised. As a matter of fact, he got to a point where he was afraid, because when he saw all of these soldiers, millions of soldiers going into the mouths of Virat Rupa, the universal form. So even for devotees, one of the things that we can't tell, there's one or two things. One is Shastra talks about, or the scripture talks about the different incarnations of the Lord. The different incarnations just don't just come out of the blue. They are talked about earlier. So we know all the way up to Kalki, even in this particular Kali Yuga, where he was born, where his parents are, where he's going to be born, who his parents are. It's all that's given in the Shastra. We read that earlier. So that's there. And the universal form is one that is exhibited by Sri Krishna. So if anybody else says, I am Lord, I'm God, then you can respectfully ask him. You have to respectfully ask him, because he may be the Lord. But if he isn't, you'll find out. Because all you do is ask him to exhibit his Virat Rupa. Can you please show? When Arjuna asked Krishna on the Battle of Kurukshetra, Krishna did it. So we can also ask, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, please show the universal form. And don't take any answer, any excuse. It has to be a person who is capable of showing, because only Lord Krishna can do that. And so if the person gives any excuse and not being able to do right away, you know this person is fake. So one important point here for us devotees is the property, or for lack of a better word, the ability of a Lord to expand himself without any loss. If we look at things materially, if you have 100 and you take one out of it, you're going to get 99 left. But the Lord is one, and if you take one from it, it's still one. You take another one, it's still one. For example, in Dwarka, he had 16,108 queens in 16,108 palaces. And he related to them, not one person dealing with 16,108 queens, but one Lord dealing with one wife, one queen. So to do that, he had to expand himself into 16,108 Prakash forms, looking like the original. There's Prakash and Vilas. The Vilas forms don't look like the original, like Lord Narayan, 4 arms. The original is 2 armed Krishna. But he can expand himself into as many 2 armed Krishna as he likes. And he does that with especially the gopis when it comes to the rasa dance. The gopis number in the millions. And at first he would dance with Srimati Radharani, with the gopis around him, but he will also expand himself such that every gopi feels Krishna is right next to me, dancing with me. And to do that, he has to expand himself into as many gopis as are present for the rasa dance. So the Lord can expand himself in innumerable complete forms. And even after doing that, he's still complete without any loss. And it's through his spiritual potency that he does that. And this is explained very nicely in the Sri Upanishad, the very first text, which is the invocation. Om Purnam Ada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachate Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Vashishate. The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete. And because he's completely perfect, the emanations from him, all of them, including this phenomenal world, they are all perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. And because he's a complete whole, even though so many complete units come out from him, emanate from him, he still remains complete and the complete balance. So this is literally phenomenal to even think about this particular text, which is explained in this Sri Upanishad invocation. The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete. And the emanations from him are also complete wholes. It is never possible to do that materially. To take away or to expand or to break up into parts, there will be smaller parts from a material standpoint. But from a spiritual standpoint, the Lord can in fact expand and have numerous emanations, and he still not only are the numerous emanations completing of themselves, but the Lord is still complete and does not lose. The closest mundane example one can give, Srila Prabhupada has done that, is the ocean. You can pour water into the ocean, and the ocean does not appear to be fuller. You can take water out of the ocean, and the ocean does not appear to be short of water. At least from our own material conception, we can see that. But that's even a material in a mundane example. But it's the closest. So he remains the complete balance. So in this invocation, Srila Prabhupada begins by describing the complete whole as the personality of Godhead. And there are some that realize it's the impersonal Brahman, or some that meditate on the Paramatma. But those are not complete realization of the absolute complete. The personality of Godhead for devotees, and Srila Prabhupada stressed this, is Krishna is Satchidananda. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadi Adi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. Lord Brahma talks in his Brahma Samhita, chapter 5, text 1. So his body is Sat Chit Ananda, eternal knowledge and bliss form. The realization of the impersonal Brahman is the eternal feature, the Sat feature. This is the aspect of eternity. The Paramatma realization is both Sat and Chit feature. The Paramatma realization, the Lord in the heart, and also in every atom, that realization is realization of his eternal form and also knowledge. The Lord knows it all, and the Lord is eternal, Paramatma. But you cannot relate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Paramatma, as a friend or as a lover, none of that. So those are aspects of his eternity and knowledge, Paramatma. But the realization of the absolute personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, is the realization of all the three, Sat, Chit, and Ananda. So we can relate in bliss with the Lord, as the gopis do. They relate in the rasa dance. And the gopis, as souls, they're all eternal and they're full of knowledge. That is the nature of the soul. The soul is Satchidananda. So the impersonal is forever. So that's the Sat feature. And the Paramatma is also forever, but the realization of knowledge is there. And then the activities, as well as eternity, as well as knowledge, that is the personality of Godhead in the full relation. So when a devotee realizes the Supreme Person, always look at it from the aspect of these three, the absolute truth in its completeness. So the personality of Godhead has immense potencies, and they are all as complete as he is. The completeness is that's what's very, 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 very amazing about the Lord. To come out, partial expansion to come out of the Lord, but then it's complete in itself. And of course, in this material universe, there are 24 elements, and that's what produces all the activities, maintenance, subsistence, all of that. First, the gross ones: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. There's 5 of the great elements. It's called Mahabhuta. Then there's the false ego, and then the intelligence, and then the modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, initially in the unmanifested stage. So that's 3 of them. That would make 8. Now, there are 5 senses for acquiring knowledge. And those are the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, and the skin. Eyes for seeing, ears for hearing, nose for smelling, tongue for tasting and speaking, and skin for touch. So we talked about 8 earlier. We add another 5 to it, that will make 13. Then there are 5 working senses. First one we talked about was for acquiring knowledge. The ears, as we said, and with the hear and the eye see and so on. They are working senses. The voice, the legs, the hands, and then the evacuating hole, the anus, and the genitals for production of the same kind of living entity. So we had talked about 13 earlier, so you add 5 to it, that would be 18. Then above the senses, there is the mind which is within. Hmm? Initially, we talked about the false ego and the intelligence. So now we've added the mind to it. The mind is the sense within. So we are 18, 18 plus 1 is 19. And then the 5 objects of the senses. The smelling, tasting, the form, touch, and sound. So we were at 19, 19 plus 5 is 24. So those are the 24 elements. And those are described in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So, nature, the enjoyer, and consciousness. That's the title of it. So it's described there, and the 24 elements are the field of activity. The field of activity. All of these, what's present, the Mahabhuta, then the senses, the first ones for acquiring knowledge, and then of course there's the false ego, intelligence, and the unmanifested stage, the 3 modes of material nature taken together. And there's the mind, then there's the working senses, there are 5 of them, and then the objects of the senses, there are 5 of them. And if you add them all up, that is 24. So Krishna has set things up in the material world such that when time comes for annihilation, that will happen. And then when the time comes for, again, them coming into being, that also happens. And he himself does not make any extraneous effort to have that happen, or for that matter, maintaining the universe. The things to have the universe maintained, to maintain, are all present. So the Lord has given all of these. And we have facilities also now for us, human beings, living beings, especially human beings. We are given facility to be able to realize the complete whole, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But it gets to a point where if we want to, because we have the free choice, if we want to, we can relate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead after finding out how incredible he is, at least to some extent, finding out to some extent, because the Lord is limitless. Or some people decide not to relate. But the human form of life, that is a complete manifestation of the consciousness of the living being. The human form. The others don't have that. And how do we get that? The soul goes through so many species of life. There are 8,400,000 types of life, of body that the soul can inhabit and become a living entity in that way in the material world, going through the cycle of birth and death. It takes a while, millions of years, for a soul to be able to be allowed into the human body. And then the intelligence is at the point where we can realize the completeness of the Lord. So we have a very, very wonderful chance now that we are souls like any other soul, same quality, but we happen to be in a human body, and therefore we have to take advantage of this. That's why Srila Prabhupada calls it the escape body, to go into the spiritual. Even if we learn about how wonderful the Lord is by how the Virat Rupa is like, and other people who don't really get connected to the Lord spiritually are appreciating the Virat Rupa. Well, that may be there, but for devotees, it's a whole question of being able to relate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And especially at this time, when it has been made available, this particular huge planet called Golok Vrindavan, that we have a chance to be able to not only go there, but relate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in our own special relationship. One of the categories of 5. So the opportunity is huge. And we should not let Maya distract us from this wonderful opportunity that we have. So in our own situation, we can look at the where we are at in terms of what we are strong in and what we need improvement on. We can help others by convincing them about Krishna consciousness or helping them if they wouldn't hear by just giving them prashadam so they can start. And the prashadam will do its work, as looking at Maharaj like to put it. The prashadam will do its work. You don't know when the person is going to turn to Krishna, but once you give them prashadam, not only would this whole Krishna consciousness begin to at some point be open to the mind and intelligence of such a person, but the other thing that happens is that even if the person does not open up to Krishna consciousness after giving prasadam, the next life they'll take a body again of a human. That's what the mercy of the Lord does, prasadam. So even if you're not that adept or comfortable in preaching to someone, we can always give gifts, and people do accept gifts. So a gift of prasadam or snack offered to the Lord and given to this a person who may not even believe in God. There are people who are atheists, may not even believe in God, but even they will take. They'll take food stuff, which is a gift given to them. So we should take advantage of that. And on top of that, there are many, many other living entities who are not in these physical human type bodies. And they also need not only nourishment, they also need not material nourishment only, but spiritual nourishment. So what do? We can help even them. When we chant the name of the Lord out so we can hear, the vibration goes out because we're speaking the Hare Krishna mantra, and they can benefit from it because it is a spiritual mantra and it goes to the soul. It nourishes our soul, but it nourishes them also, their souls, those that are in the area where they can hear. Secondly, when we offer boga to the Lord after we cook and we allow the Lord to get away for a little while, let the Lord eat, and now you close the offering and it's prasadam, it's mahaprasadam. The water that we offer can be given to the entities, the living entities that also require that kind of food. I'm talking about plants. I'm talking about the grass. You can, in fact, pour this onto a plant, the water, that is. Either plant at your house or plant that's outside the house, especially this is the time that they can, in fact, it's warm now, they grow, and regular rain would give them nourishment. But if you give them mahaprasad, then from the water, from the offering, then whatever souls take that in as plants, they get to be human. They go into human bodies in the next life. They go into human bodies in the next life. From plants, ordinarily, there would be a situation where from the plant body, as many plants as the soul may go through, then to an insect body, and or reptile body, then to a bird type body, then to an animal body before they become human. But just by giving the Maha water to the plant or to grass, those that are fortunate enough to have that moisture, the plant bodies or grass bodies, will take the human body the next life, the very next life. And this is also prasadam. So then they'll be open to Krishna consciousness. So that little activity. So then if you think about it, you can go a step further and take some of the actual food, not the water, but the food that's offered, that is prasadam. Take a small amount of it, go outside, and put a very small amount of it on the bottom of a tree, the roots area. Then all of these entities, like insects that look around for food stuff, when they see that, they will take some and they'll eat it, and they'll also get the same kind of benefit. So we really can spread the mercy of the Lord like that if we are actually conscious or conscientious about it to help others. And how we grow in Christian consciousness depends very much on how much help we give to other humans as well as those that are not in human bodies. Mhm. So we are at a point where we can give so much of the Lord's mercy in the ways that we described here. But if we meet somebody who is not a believer, we can begin to talk about the arrangements of nature, and that they cannot refute. So hopefully we'll be able to get them to the point where they have appreciation of the Virat Rupa. And if you give them prashadam, then from that point on, by the Lord's mercy, they will also open up to Krishna consciousness. And that is what the Lord wants. The more we're able to help others to come into Krishna consciousness, the happier the Lord will be with us, and therefore the greatest chance of us being allowed to go back home, back to Godhead. So take advantage of the situation. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So thank you, these devotees, for allowing me to do the service. And now this is the time to unmute yourself. You can ask questions if you want to, or you can share some realizations as you like. Hare Krishna. So anyone? Okay,
Hare
go
Krishna,
ahead.
please accept my humble obeisance to Sri Prabhupada.
Yeah, bless you,
I
Prabhupada.
joined at least good 25 minutes late, so I apologize for that, but I did hear good half of the class. I was on the other class. But I liked, I think your concluding point was very powerful because it's ways for us to share and spread the philosophy and the movement. And what was very, very fresh in my mind is coming off Chandramani Swami's class this morning for his disciples. Maharaj mentioned a very strong point that he said that every devotee should really meditate on and really ask themselves. He said that, we have to have the mood, we have to have the attitude of being grateful, attitude of gratitude for those who have made sacrifices to give us what we have now. And what sacrifice are we making to spread it, to share it with everyone? So he was saying, and I want to read how he put it. It was very, very powerful, actually, where he said, make some sacrifices to share our philosophy to spread the movement. And then he says, are we grateful to the person who made the sacrifice for us? If so, are we making any sacrifices ourselves to share and spread the movement? And then he goes on to say that if we are not grateful, then we don't understand what we have received and we are taking advantage of it. So I thought that was very powerful how he said it, tying to your last point that you mentioned that, we should be finding any and every opportunity to share the philosophy, spread the movement, like you said, water the plant with Maha water, give the prasadam, any way to share Krishna's mercy, whether it be through good deeds or, prasadam distribution, or just being kind and friendly and nice, that is all ways of sharing and spreading our philosophy and movement. So I wanted to share that. Thank you, Haribo.
Thank you very much. And I'm glad you brought up this whole point about those who have sacrificed themselves. Srila Prabhupada was the big person who sacrificed as far as, how much effort that he put in at his, latter stages, at age 70 and up, through that time, 70 to 81, thereabouts, 12 years of so much help, doing very, very little sleeping, but translating the books from so many other points, from so many other acharyas that have left their commentary, bringing it all, reading it and bringing it all and summarizing it into his own purpose, and then his purpose, and then his own realizations too, as Krishna was dictating for him to write. So we've got 84 books from him, to the PowerPoint. And we have a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to grow in Krishna consciousness from those books. You can read them yourself. When you read and have a discussion about it, it comes alive even more. Mm-hmm. Yes, those who are disciples, that's Srila Prabhupada himself now. Those who are disciples of Srila Prabhupada, they were very instrumental in getting, we obeyed the spiritual master. They got the presses and they got the books made. They were binding themselves, and to this day, BBT binds the books. A few times, some Dai Nippon and the Japanese publishing company and Macmillan also, they were open to publishing the Bhagavad Gita, but now it's actually the Buddhists themselves that do it. The books that we get now are from the Buddhists themselves. Very, very, very important point here as how they are helping. In the beginning, to spread Krishna consciousness, they had to go to countries, sometimes even a language they didn't know. Countries like Japan, countries like Russia, the Buddhists went there, the Soviet Union. When they didn't know the language, yet still they were giving books out. They went to the professors, and the professors could speak English, therefore they could communicate with them. And through that, they were able to get the books in the universities. And they went to a lot of austerities to do that. A lot of austerities. There were some that didn't have a place to sleep. They were just going from one train to another and then trying to take rest in there. Where to chant the rounds in the Soviet Union, it's just very difficult. Because their secret service did not want any religion there. As we read, there's a book called Salted Bread. They describe what happened in the Soviet Union at the time when devotees were made, and they were very, very, very excited about distributing books, but there was so much difficulty because at some point the head of the Soviet Union made a rule that Hare Krishnas should be arrested. They're trying to distribute books, and then there's a rule that they should be arrested. You see them anywhere. They were telling the police. They just made a law. You arrest Hare Krishnas. These are devotees that were there that actually reported this in a book that currently I'm reading. So we have it easy because it's a country that has freedom of religion. Therefore, you can practice what you want to practice. Krishna consciousness and other religions are allowed here. There in the Soviet Union, it wasn't. And then there were some that were not even white bodies, as the Russian people are, in fact, in the Caucasian type of body. And there were people in different bodies, black body devotees that came from America, went there, and still, by the Lord's grace, were able to distribute books. And there were some that even stayed homeless. When they went to Britain, they didn't have a home. There was one particular Mataji with a small child, a daughter. No home at some parts of the time that they stayed in Britain and trying to do, to spread Krishna consciousness. So all of these people have helped. They're sacrificing convenience and life to get us to this point. So we should be very grateful to them, not only grateful to them, but the way to show the greatest gratitude is to take the process seriously ourselves because they were spreading it. So if we take it and live by it and spread it too, just like in the ways that we talked about earlier, then Krishna will be pleased with everybody, including the pioneers. Hare Krishna. Thank you for bringing that point up. Okay. Any other comments or questions or realizations that you'd like to share? You can unmute yourself. Okay. We are at the top of the hour now, 9 o'clock, and you definitely, even as I'm speaking now, you can interrupt if you want to by unmuting yourself and asking a question. But if not, then thank you all for coming in to hear, and also you'll have some realizations yourself to make you do, because consciousness is about doing. Love is not a question of just having an emotions, but you have to practice it by doing things that are favorable to the other person. So hopefully some of the things that we talked about, the way to share prasadam and, the universal form, how you can bring somebody who is an undevotee up closer to a relation with the Supreme Personality of Godhead will be taken. I heard it and I'm also sharing it. So we all can benefit other people that way. Panchakalpatarubhasya kripa sindhya eva cha titanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your week. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Bless you, Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Bless you, Prabhupada.